America 1926. A scholar suggests that African American history be acknowledged and highlighted. What started as Negro History Week turned into Black History Month, a celebration of Black people's achievements and a means to educate about their struggles. But nearly a century later, how much has changed in the state of race relations in the U.S.? I'm Anelise, Borges, and this is The Stream.
Their cause must be our cause, too.
We want justice! We want justice! We want justice! We want justice! We want justice!
Racism is so deeply embedded into the fabric of the society that I would say that practically all white people are embody to a certain extent racist attitudes. Many white people have consciously attempted to combat these attitudes within themselves.
Racial inequality, police brutality, whitewashing of the Black culture, just some of the battles of Black people in America throughout centuries of racism and oppression. Today, we're spotlighting three remarkable activists who are fighting through poetry, education, and grassroots initiatives to reshape the reality of their communities and of the country they call home. What challenges do they face? And what does Black History Month mean to them? Here to discuss this with me are Ericka Hart, a racial and gender justice educator and host of the Hoodrat to Headwrap podcast. Monet, a Grammy-nominated poet, writer, lyricist, and activist. Abbas Muntaqim, the co-founder of the People's Programs, a grassroots organization that empowers the Black community in Oakland, California. He's also the co-host of the Hella Black podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the stream today. It's a pleasure to have you. Ericka, what does Black History Month mean to you personally, and how does it actually intersect with the work that you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Black history to me means just a celebration of Black people and the oftentimes non-consensual contributions that we have given over and over to this carceral police state of a country. It's also an opportunity to honor and celebrate Black, queer, and trans people who are oftentimes erased from any celebration around Black History Month. So it's exciting for me. It's exciting for the work that I do, as it sits at the intersections of also honoring Black people in sex education work, in gender justice work, and just across the board informs my politic.
Aja, your take here.
I think I agree. There's many things that could be said about our history and our culture. A big part of what I've loved, about us as a people is that we're a global people. And, while a month is really wonderful to be able to celebrate and hone in and focus on our contributions, we know that we make history every day, and that so long as we can continue to elevate and find ways to integrate our narratives, our cultural production, our brilliance, our struggles into the fabric of how we talk about this country, there would be no America without Black people. There would be no world, no global conscious world if we did not talk about African people and the contribution we've made to the world. So, while the month is wonderful, I think being able to integrate our stories into everyday life is really crucial.
Mm-hmm. Abbas, can I get your views on Black History Month? What does it mean to you personally?
Yeah, I think it's super important for us to understand what Black History Month has become. In many ways, Black History Month has been co-opted by capitalist imperialists. Our history has been stolen from us. It's been repackaged. It's been sanitized. It's been whitewashed. And then now it's been sold back to us. And we're now going to have to buy our own history back from the people who are oppressing us. So for us, it's super important for us to reframe the discussion of Black history to honor the Black radical tradition. Why is it that we're being told to celebrate people like Barack Obama who dropped bombs on African people? Why are we being told to celebrate the Jay-Zs and the Beyoncés who do nothing for the material reality of the Black community? Instead, we should be celebrating and honoring the history of our martyrs like El Haj Malik El Shabazz, honoring the history of Sekou Odinga, who recently transitioned and was a political prisoner and a prisoner of war and fought by any means necessary against the so-called United States of America, in which he liberated Assata Shakur and helped her gain her freedom. And now Assata is in Cuba as free as she can be, right? So it's super important for us to understand even what does this word Black mean, right? We understand throughout our history we've identified, or been identified as Negro. And then, the identity of Black came in a specific moment of the Black Power movement, right? Which was a source of empowerment against the racial Jim Crow South and the Jim Crow terrorism. But at the end of the day, Black is just a color. If we're not tying our struggle back to our homeland of Africa and seeing ourselves as African, that's also part of the problem. If we ain't tying our struggle to actual land and understanding that El Haj Malik El Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X, said land is the basis of independence, we will have no source of our history. So it's important that we actually reclaim our radical and revolutionary history. It's important that we reclaim the history of our martyrs who breathe life into our society.
Very, very important points you bring here. Ericka, we mentioned at the start of the show that the seed, if you will, that planted this whole movement was actually dropped maybe 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago. And yet issues like voting rights, labor rights, police violence are very present in the reality of America today, especially in the reality of Black Americans today. Can you tell us why you think that is?
Well, I think the neoliberal project is insidious and to the American fabric to continue. So like it has already been said, Black History Month has been sold back to us as just something that we should be educating ourselves about particular people within Black History Month. Martin Luther King Jr., a whitewashed history of Martin Luther King Jr., certainly not the activist work that he did to demolish capitalism. It just becomes something that exists at the academy level and at the secondary school level, but not actually seen in the material conditions of Black people. So while we have a month and that's great and we get to celebrate, it doesn't actually shift anything, right? It's just symbolism. We still are seeing the impacts of redlining and gentrification. We still are seeing really horrible statistics around maternal mortality. People are walking in, Black birthing people are walking into medical institutions and not walking out with their child. We are seeing across the board Black home ownership really being disrespected by folks not even being able to get their homes appraised if they even own a home. In Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, Baltimore, Maryland, Newark, New Jersey, just to name a few, are all places where Black people have been exposed to lead in high numbers in water. So again, there's neoliberalism loves a symbol, but not actually a way to disrupt and actually change the system as it is designed.
Aja, I want to play to our viewers a clip of your work and then ask you about the power of the spoken word and oral tradition in this fight. Take a look.
The devil, you know, taxes the air we breathe, privatizes the water, profits of homelessness, strangles the land, injects hormones in animals, rapes the people, and rewards the rich, charges you for being sick, sends a bill to your loved ones with interest when you die, laughs at us coughing up our lungs, gulping water, lead dripping off our chins, buys private ships to the moon, dances with your demons, the selfish, individualistic part of you, the one who'd rather not have a foot on your neck, or who shows up to the rally after sipping sweet comfort at a corporate gig that pays you just enough to die a little slower, tithing, community, fostering care, how being Black or woman, hey, or queer, or trans, or other, or human, or inhumane, computer or code, able-bodied, 10 toes, running or right or wrong, how none of it matters.
You're proof that poetry is a very powerful medium. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspires you in your activism, in your work?
Well, thank you for sharing. I think for me, it's a big part of the Black radical tradition, in particular the Black arts movement, to understand the ways that we can use our art, our storytelling, that it always has had a function, that there has always been a sense of urgency in shaping and shifting our narratives to help uplift our people, but to make sure that we were able to acknowledge, the ways in which we have created in the midst of great destruction and struggle. And so, I think of Tony K. Bambara, which talks about, the role of us being able to make the revolution irresistible, that we know that our people are constantly inundated with, hyper-capitalism, ways of being sold material, things and consuming and consumption. But it's not on us to judge or to critique the wants and needs of things or that people want and desire in their lives. It's on us to share and to uplift and to inspire and educate our people on what the need for freedom is and why we need freedom and what our liberation movements have always put in place for us to make a life, a more equitable life of integrity possible. So to me, poetry is a truth-telling. It's a truth-telling art form. It's an art form of the expression of the heart, and it's a way that we orient our interior landscape. That though our bodies have been imprisoned and shackled, though our bodies have been brutalized, there are many ways that we have still to fight and to struggle with our ideas, with our interior landscape, and the final frontier will and always is ultimately the mind, the spirit, the soul. And I think that poets contend with these struggles, and hopefully the ones that are effective are getting us to a more honest, truthful, and liberatory practice within ourselves, and therein an embodied way of being in the world.
And sharing beauty as you go. We really wanted to make this show about you guys and about the importance of your activism. Abbas, you co-founded the People's Programs, and can you tell us a little bit about the work that you guys do in Oakland, but also how it's entangled in this fight for liberation and for equal rights?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm here in Oakland, California, home of the Black Panther Party, right? The Black Panther Party, they had survival programs pending revolution, where they were building material programs to advance the struggle and to take care of the people, right? So we follow in that tradition. In many ways, we're trying to pick up the torch. So at People's Programs, what we're doing is building these communal programs, these decolonization programs, where we're beginning to take care of the people and to actually build true power and to be able to develop power in which we can move in a desired direction that we want to, which is to secure land and to free the land from Euro-American control. So here in Oakland, we have a free breakfast program that has served over 70,000 meals to homeless people. Black people are sleeping in the streets, and there's the most amount of homeless people here in Oakland, California. We also have a free community health clinic similar to what the Black Panther Party had, where we're offering free health care to the people, free primary care on wheels and pulling up to different hoods and being able to serve people free health care, because we know that Black people in this country do not have adequate health care. We also have free grocery programs where we're delivering groceries to the people free of charge, and a lot of the produce that's coming from our groceries is actually coming from the farm, where we're trying to develop food autonomy. So, where we're not relying on our enemy to be fed, right? So these programs are very important for advancing liberation, right? We also have cultural elements as well, but the cultural element isn't just by itself. It's directly tied to our material program. So Hello Black Podcast, we're educating to liberate. On Tales of the Town, it's a podcast, a book, a film that is educating people on our history of being Black in Oakland. My family originally, some of them came from Louisiana. They fled the Jim Crow South and then made their way to Oakland in the 1940s, right? They fled the Jim Crow racism, right? Just to be met with police violence, just to be met with gentrification, just to be met with environmental racism, just to be met with inadequate health care, right? So understanding that history of struggle in our community, understanding that history struggle within our own family structures is very important. So we have these arts and cultural initiatives to be able to educate and liberate, because it's important for us to free our mind. That is, it's the war right now. We got to free our mind from this European American indoctrination. And once we free our mind, everything will follow.
Ericka, you are an educator. I mean, you are many things, but you educate through even your modeling career. Can you tell us why education is also a very key part here in this movement?
Sure. I think education is necessary as political education. Our institutions have found ways to, one, keep us from reading, from even having that privilege, but then even with being able to read and having access to schools, separating us and having us not be knowledgeable about our history. But then even with the little bit of history that's provided in schools, it's intentional that schools are working to de-radicalize young people, as schools are also arms of the state. So secondary, also collegiate level, they're not actually teaching about even the immense details of the gruesome details of the transatlantic slave trade. They're not teaching about slave revolts. They're not teaching about lynchings and how white people went and essentially came with popcorn and took pictures and observed that. They're not engaging in those conversations because they know that if young people in particular have the information, if they have the knowledge, they will absolutely resist. So education is so necessary to really uncouple ourselves from the lies that we are told. For so long, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought that there was something wrong with my lips. I thought there was something wrong with my nose, how my hair grows out of my head, how my body is shaped. And I wanted for so long for it to look different, for it to change. And if I had just known about something, a story about Saartjie Baartman, right, being stolen from South Africa and paraded around Europe and her body put on display from the 1800s until 2003, where Nelson Mandela had to advocate for her body to be brought back to South Africa and buried appropriately. If I would have known that her body has been used and copied by people like the Kardashians to essentially sell us more things because people want Blackness attached to whiteness, but not actually Blackness in its truest form. If I would have known these things, I would have absolutely been free. My life would have looked a lot different. The inherited thoughts I would have had may have given me a bit more ease to actually exist in my body as I am intended to. So education makes such a profound difference. Also, as a breast cancer survivor, I blame myself so much, thinking like, oh, it's because I ate chicken for most of my life. That's why I got breast cancer, and that's why Black people die from breast cancer at high numbers. No, absolutely not. Black people are dying at high numbers from breast cancer because our medical institutions are built on the dispossession and displacement and genocide of Indigenous Africans and Indigenous Americans. It's still to this day, doing mammograms are done incorrectly on Black bodies. So there's so much that education can provide, but if it doesn't provide understanding of how to organize and how to be in community and truly to disrupt the state, then it also doesn't make a difference. So really being intentional with the ways that we use education is super important as well.
I want to get Aja and Abbas' reaction here, but before, we are a show powered by social media, and I want to share a clip we found on TikTok. This was put out by We Are Push Black. Take a look.
Critical race theory has become an umbrella term for Black studies. It's a word for making sense of and critiquing white supremacy and finding pathways to defeat it and achieve Black freedom. White people have been trying to stop CRT for a long time. This goes as far back as Frantz Fanon in the mid-20th century. Considered the grandfather of critical race theory, Fanon's book, Black Skin, White Mask, created the vocabulary for Black people to talk about living under white supremacy. Despite its powerful relevance to this day, Fanon's University rejected his work, a clear sign that Black critical thought has always caused white anxiety.
Aja, your take here, and perhaps more importantly, how do we fix this? Where to from here for Black History Month?
Well, I think that something that is crucial is to understand that Black people, we're a global people, and Blackness is not just about skin color, though it is the impetus for how we understand ourselves, that we have a political, we have a political orientation and understanding of the world and value-making system. So when we think about, Black people, June Jordan says, we have other allegiances that we are tied to that differ us than just whether or not we are white or non-white. There are other kinds of allegiances that we have. And I think we must embody and embrace those and educate our people on those, especially at a time where we find that books are being banned. Literacy is crucial, and when we talk about literacy, we're not talking about just literacy of, words on pages and books. We're talking about literacy of the spirit. We're talking about being able to read and understand and have some sort of, connection to what it is to read the truth in someone's, tone and body language, and understanding that just as much as, we have the language and we have the rhetoric, how do we practice and embody the things and values that we claim to believe and claim to be about? I also think about a time of where AI is being propagated and lifted up and really celebrated, by a lot of capitalist corporations, institutions. We have to remember EI, which is our emotional intelligence, and how our young people learn about emotional intelligence is through, relationship building. While we have all this rhetoric and revolutionary politics, if we are not building revolutionary relationships that transform not just the way that we see ourselves, but the way that we practice each other, the way that we practice togetherness, the way that we practice solidarity. Black people are people of solidarity. So our orientation is not just connected to land. We've never been a people that has been about owning and objectifying land. We are a people of embodied principles, of values, of in-betweenness. We live in the in-between. We know that there are other realms by which we connect and align with each other. And those are the things that we must subscribe to, and to try to educate our young people on our songs, on our dances, on our theater, on our cultural productions that have always embodied and, instilled our values. And so to me, whatever we can be doing to lift up truth-telling art and embodied practice, to me, is the way forward.
Abbas, do you agree? What is the way forward here in terms of transforming Black History Month into a year-round commitment?
Yeah, ultimately, we have to be educated. As El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz said, education is the passport to our future, right? And for us, we must educate ourselves against the vicious system of neocolonialism. Neocolonialism has essentially integrated Black people into the colonial system of the United States of America in order to do the job of America, right? Martin Luther King, he's oftentimes framed as this most praised integrationist. But what he said in one of his last conversations with Harry Belafonte is that I believe I have integrated my people into a burning house. And in 2024, it's very clear to us that the house is still burning. And the problem that we have right now is that, people like, Killer Mike, for example, he just won a Grammy, right? He wants to be integrated into the system of America, right? He wants to be integrated into the Euro-American Zionist controlled media, right? And he's celebrated as this Black figure who just won a Grammy. But in reality, he has been pro-police, he's been pro-integration, he has been pro the military occupation through the formation of cop cities in Atlanta, and we're celebrating this as Black history. No, he is actually an enemy towards the masses of African people. So it isn't, Blackness isn't just this cultural production, but the highest form of culture is revolution. When we revolt and free ourselves from these Euro-American captivity, when we free ourselves from this captive state and then move into an independent state, we're actually developing culture at its highest form. And all of our labor is being used to advance the imperialist interests of the United States of America. You don't get the so-called Zionist state of Israel without the oppression of Black people here in this country, right? America doesn't become this capitalist superpower without oppressing and stealing land, and then it's supporting Israel in its genocide against Palestinian people, right? So we have to be able to educate ourselves to be able to identify what is freedom and what is it not. What is independence and what is captivity.
It's a very, absolutely, and it's a very wide conversation as well. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you, Ericka, Aja, and Abbas, for being part of the stream today. And thank you all for watching. Don't forget, this is very much your show. We're always open to your suggestions. If you have a conversation or a topic that you'd like to flag for us, you can use the hashtag or the handle AJStream, and we'll look into them. Take care, and I'll see you soon.